conflict between macroeconomic objectives. So for conflict between macroeconomic objectives, we're going to start with inflation and unemployment. There's always inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment. So I'm going to read further. Assuming that the rate of inflation is too high, one way to reduce the rate of inflation is to reduce aggregate demand. For example, through cuts in government spending, which is contractionary fiscal policy. This will lead to recession and cyclical unemployment. This illustrates the trade-off between inflation and unemployment. On the other hand, if the rate of economic growth is too low, one way to increase it in the short term is to raise aggregate demand. This will lower unemployment but increase inflation. Then, the point that we can represent this with the Phillips curve, or the short-run aggregate demand and short-run aggregate supply. But before we go further into the Phillips curve, the point is this: if there is, the first point I made is about a rise in inflation rate. If there is a rise in inflation rate, government can reduce the inflation rate by cutting spending. So if government cuts spending, it means aggregate demand within the economy would fall. And the fall in aggregate demand will mean that unemployment would rise again, because it's going to lead to cyclical unemployment or recession. So cyclical unemployment or recession means people do not have job. And if people do not have job, then prices will definitely fall again. So there's always going to be inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment. If unemployment is increasing, inflation will fall. If employment is increasing, inflation would rise.
Okay.
Do we get it? So we can represent that with the short-run Phillips curve. Are you with me, please? Okay. So for the Phillips curve, the Phillips curve shows the relationship between unemployment and inflation in the short run. But mostly when we talk about the Phillips curve, we're still talking about the wage rate within the economy, because according to W. Phillips, he believes that the most important cost for firms is the wages they pay to workers. Mm-hmm. Do you understand? So the economy is always operating somewhere on the short-run Phillips curve, because the short-run Phillips curve represents different combinations of inflation and unemployment. So the Phillips curve shows that if it is assumed that money wages are paid to workers are most important single cost of production. Therefore, if money wages increases faster than productivity, so if the amount paid to workers is increasing more than the productivity of workers, it means costs will be incurring more costs, or firms will be incurring more costs. And if firms are incurring more costs, they have to push that cost onto consumers, and that will bring about inflation. That's about Phillips curve. Do you get Phillips curve here? Cost is increasing, productivity is reducing. It's not increasing at the same rate as wages are increasing. So which means firms will be incurring more cost. Incurring more cost means they have to push the cost to become a higher price for consumers, and that brings about inflation. Do you get that? So the Phillips curve shows that there is a trade-off between unemployment and inflation. So the lower the rate of unemployment, the higher the rate of inflation. So the lower the rate of unemployment, the higher the rate of inflation. So if unemployment is reducing, why will firms, this is how it works. Because if wage rate is increasing, wage rate might increase because there's low unemployment in the economy. So workers understand that the demand for their job is increasing. So they ask for more and do less. Firms do not have any other options than to pay more or less, except if they want to lose their workers to competitors. They wouldn't want to lose their workers. So this brings about paying more wages to workers without reciprocating the productivity. So that is this trade-off between unemployment and inflation. Did you get it here? So we can also represent it with the short-run aggregate supply and the aggregate demand curve. So we look at the aggregate demand curve here. So here, it simply means an increase in the real output. There is a movement between the short-run aggregate supply curve. There's movement along this curve, right? So this movement means there's an increase in the real output. An increase in the real output means GDP is increasing. And if GDP is increasing, it simply means resources within the economy are fully employed. So if resources are fully employed, it means real wage is increasing also. And that will bring about increasing demand, which means aggregate demand will increase from 81 to 82. Get the point here. A movement along the short run curve means that real output is increasing from Y1, 0Y1 to 0Y2. This represents an increase in real output represents an increase in GDP. If there's an increase in the GDP, it means the economy is operating at full employment. So wages are increasing for workers. That will increase aggregate demand within the economy from AD1 to AD2. And that will bring about a rise in price from P1 to P2. Do you get it? So the Phillips curve also leads to the short-run aggregate demand and short-run aggregate supply curve. Is it clear? Any question about that?